Hey y'all, it's Robin. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about some summer recommendations. Summer starts next week. I think at the time that this is posting, I thought that this would be such a good time to talk about a couple of books that I think would be perfect for this time of year. I tried to get a little collection of different types of books. I mostly read romance, so the majority of these are romance, but I tried to throw in a couple of summer thrillers, and then there's one kind of magical YA book that I absolutely love and think would be perfect for the summer season. So let's get right into the recommendations. So the first recommendation is actually a duology, and I'm just gonna get this one out of the way because I'm sure this is on everyone's summer recommendations list, and that is the Bellinger series by Tessa Bailey. The first one being It Happened One Summer, and the sequel being Hook, Line, and Sinker. Both of these are so good for summer, especially the first one since, I mean, it takes place in summer, but we are following these two sisters, Piper and Hannah, and in the first one, Piper is cut off from her very wealthy LA family, and she is shipped off to this small port city, and there she is supposed to figure out how to live her life without her stepfather's dollar, and she decides to renovate this bar in the small town where her father used to live, and her sister go through the renovation process, and along the way she falls in love with a grumpy sailor, and this book is absolutely hilarious. Tessa Bailey writes not only super steamy romances, but super funny romances as well, and that is definitely the case in here. I love our heroine. She is inspired by Alexis from Schitt's Creek, so if you like Alexis's vibe and character, this is definitely one to check out. And then the sequel, Hook, Line, and Sinker, is Hannah returning to that small town for a filming job that she is doing, and it is her falling in love with her best friend Fox, who is also best friends with the hero from Book 1, and the two of them have a forced proximity, friends to lovers romance, and the small town is great. These are really fast, quick, funny reads, and they are just perfect. Perfect for a good summer rom-com. Coffee interlude. The next book is Red Dirt Heart by N.R Walker, and this is an indie romance, and in this one we are following one of our heroes works at one of the world's largest ranches in the Australian outback. He is bringing in somebody for the summer who just graduated with an agricultural degree, and he is from a ranch in Texas, and he is going to be coming to the outback. I think it's for a month, and he's essentially going to be learning how they farm in the desert. And it is the two of them forming this friendship and romance. There's a good found family in here. The romance itself is wonderful. The setting in here is so cool. I have talked about this before, but I am a city person. I do not do the outdoors, but this made me want to go to the outback for half a second because the setting is just so cool. And this takes place in the summer, like in the outback. And so they're talking about how it's like 100 some degrees there, so it definitely makes you feel like warm. It gives you all those summer vibes. It also is really short, so it's a perfect kind of like beach read. It's a really good time. Absolutely love this book, and if you really like this one, I think it is a 4-book series, and they are all following the same couple in the same setting, so you have a lot of books that you can binge if you end up loving this one. After that is Kulti by Mariana Zapata, and this is a super chunky, slow burn soccer romance. But if you love sports romances, this is definitely one, if you have somehow not read this, to add to your TBR. If you're like me and slept on Mariana Zapata for way too long, this is definitely one to pick up. It is definitely not a short like beach read. It is a chunky beast, but with the World Cup coming up, not in summer anymore because they had to push it back, but with the World Cup coming up soon, if you want to get in the soccer mood, this is a great one. This is following our heroine who is a soccer player in the equivalent of the women's US soccer team. I don't remember exactly where she's playing, but she's playing for a US soccer team. They get a new coach who happens to be one of her childhood heroes, only turns out that he is a huge jerk. And he is always yelling at the other women on the soccer team, and nobody likes him as their coach, but he is this like superstar, and so everyone respects him but kind of hates him. And it is her and him slowly forming a tentative friendship. One of the things that I loved most about this book is the fact that I loved their friendship just as much as their romance. It is so slow burn. You watch them form a friendship until like the very end, but when it happens, when they finally come together, it is so good. It is so worth all of the pining that you go through, but their friendship is so fantastic. And I think that's really impressive for a romance of like this size to make me not only love them as a romantic couple, but to make me love them as friends as well. And this book knocks it out of the park. So if you want a really good summer romance to get you into World Cup vibes, even though it's not happening until November, definitely add this one to your TBR. After that is another older book, but is one that I just read recently and I've never really seen anyone talk about, and that is Love in English by Karina Halle. And this is taking place in summer in Spain, and we are following our heroine, who is a college student, I believe, and she is taking a summer abroad, and she is going to Spain to work in a program that helps people learn how to speak conversational English. And so they spend 1 to 2 months. They all get together. It's almost like a summer camp, and they talk all day long. And our heroine goes there and kind of finds herself. She also forms a bond with this guy, and he is married. And the two of them form this bond and start to fall for each other. This does have cheating in it, both emotional and physical cheating, but their romance is so good. The setting in here is so cool. I was obsessed with this like Spanish camp. It was, I wanted to go here. Like I wanted this to be real so that I could go to the Spanish countryside and attend this camp. This book has a great, like I said, a great romance. It has a great found family in it. It's wonderfully written. Definitely add this one to your TBR. Next is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Siegemund-Broka, and this one is another summery romance. This one takes place in Florida, and they are at this vacation home beach house in Florida. And in this, we are following these two writers who in the past were co-writing some romance books, and something happened and they ended up having a very public separation. We are flashing forward to a few years later, and our hero is trying to return to the writing world. However, he is under contract to write one more romance with our heroine, and the two of them have to come back together to write one more romance, even though they cannot stand being in the same room as each other. Our hero is divorced, our heroine is engaged, and they return to that small Florida home where they wrote their last book, and they are going to write their new romance. I love this book. This is one of those books where I wasn't sure when I started reading it if this was going to be something that I absolutely loved or absolutely hated. And there's definitely a spectrum here. Some people are going to get on with this and absolutely adore it, and some people are going to find that the emotional cheating in here is unacceptable to them. So know your limits. Know that there is emotional and physical cheating in here. But if it's something that you can handle, I highly recommend this one. I loved their friendship. I loved their romance so much. The mutual pining and the stolen glances and the brushing of arms. Oh my god, it killed me. It's gonna make you want to sit on the beach, sit by the pool. Next is Truth or Dare by Danielle, and as you can tell from the cover of this one, this is another great beachy romance. This one is also super short, so this is actually the perfect one to take with you on your Kindle to the beach. We are attending a wedding with all of these friends from college, and our heroine and our hero were really good friends in college, and they end up having a friends to lovers romance, and this one is just really fun. It has a great friend group. There are them playing these like truth or dare games in here, which I loved. I loved that aspect. It was really fun. This explores kind of like all the different sides of friendship. So you get to see them challenging each other, getting into fights, but loving each other like fiercely through all of it. And then these two forming a new relationship after being friends for many years. And this is such a fun book. And like I said, it is the perfect one to take with you on your Kindle to the beach because it's also super short, it's super steamy, and definitely one to add to your list if you haven't read it already. The last romance I want to recommend is Revelry by Kandi Steiner. And this is a very different type of book from the last one. This is a very heart-wrenching and heartwarming love story. Kandi Steiner always has that perfect balance of like an emotional journey as well as a great relationship and steamy romance, and this one is no exception. We are following our heroine who needs a break from her life. She is going through a breakup. She like rents this cabin and she is going to stay there for the entire summer and try to get her life back. And while she is there, she forms like this friendship with all of the neighbors in this area, and she slowly forms a connection with the local guy who is kind of a shut-in. He is very quiet and reserved and doesn't speak to anyone, and the two of them get to know each other and help each other through their trauma. It is them slowly falling in love. Trigger warnings for loss of a loved one in here. I loved this. There is something about a found family story that gets me every single time, and all of these neighbors coming together and forming their own little community and family was so good. And this does take place over summer. There are scenes like on the river and them at bonfires, so it feels very summery. And if you haven't read this one and you really want like a good summer cry, definitely add this romance to your TBR. Getting into just two thrillers. The first one is The Night Swim by Megin Goldin, and this might be one of my favorite thrillers ever. This has a podcast element, so if you are an audiobook reader, I definitely recommend reading this one on audio because the podcast elements actually sound like a podcast, and the entire production of this is just really well done. And our heroine is a podcaster who covers different cases, and in this one she is covering a sexual assault case. Huge, absolutely huge trigger warnings for sexual assault and rape, as well as rape culture. This is such a difficult read sometimes. It is angering and upsetting, so tread with caution with this one because as great as this book is, it can definitely be a difficult read. So we are following her as she is covering this sexual assault case. The guy that is being accused of sexual assault is kind of like the local town hero. He is like a sports star and everything like that. And it goes to trial, and she is covering this trial. And at the same time, she keeps receiving these emails from somebody asking her to investigate a possible murder. The two plot lines end up intersecting as time goes throughout the book, and the way that the two plot lines come together is so well crafted. This book has really poignant messages. Like Megin Goldin knocks it out of the park with how she does this sexual assault plotline, because at no point does it feel like she is pointing you in a direction, but the message really comes across. It was so well crafted, so well done. The podcast elements were like the perfect addition to this, and just everything about this was fantastic. I gave this one 5 stars. So if you need a really fast-paced, engaging thriller, this is definitely one to put on your list. Then a slightly more controversial recommendation is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I know that for a lot of people, this is not their favorite Lucy Foley. If you, like me, read the guest list and weren't the biggest fan, give this one a read. I know everybody loved the guest list, but I didn't end up loving that one. But this one was really, really good. This is another closed door mystery thriller that Lucy Foley just excels at. So there's a very limited cast of characters, and you are just slowly figuring out who done it. And in this one, we are following our heroine who is down on her luck, and she ends up going to stay with her brother in Paris, and it is the middle of the summer. And when she gets to her brother's apartment, her brother is missing. And while she's in the apartment, she starts realizing that all of the neighbors might have some sort of weird connection to her brother, and someone might know more about her brother than they're letting on. And it is her trying to figure out what happened to her brother, why everyone in this apartment seems to not want to share what happened. And it is twisty and turny and super over the top and ridiculous at times, but it is just so much fun. And again, it's a very short book. It's a very fast read. It's one of those books that you are absolutely going to fly through. And then lastly, for one slightly fantastical, magical story, we have Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Meyers Sain. And this is a YA fantasy contemporary story. We are following our heroine who goes down to the bayou every single year, and she spends her summers down there. And when she gets down there this year, she discovers that one of her best friends from that town has gone missing, and it is everyone struggling with the trauma of losing one of their very best friends, and it is them trying to solve the mystery of what happened to her, all while kind of mysterious things are happening. A new boy suddenly appears in town, and no one knows who he is or how he got there or if he's connected to the disappearance. There is a lot of like slightly magical elements in here. The town is kind of built around the fact that it is this tourist bayou town, and there's like a tarot shop and a fortune telling, and all the time that you are reading this, you cannot tell if it is really magical or if it is just feeling magical. It has a really interesting vibe to it. I absolutely loved this book. It's so atmospheric. As you are reading it, you feel very swept away into the bayou, and it's definitely one that I recommend even if you're not a YA reader. I really recommend giving this one a try anyways. I will say that if you are going to read this one, there is a hurricane occurring throughout this book, so content warnings for that, especially I know as we are going into hurricane season. I wanted to give that little content warning for this, but if it is something that you can handle and you like those slightly fantastical, magical contemporaries, this is definitely one to give a try. So that is it for my summer reading recommendations. I really hope that you found something on this list that you might be able to add to your TBR. Let me know what you are planning to read for the summer, or if you have any other recommendations, and I will catch you all in my next video. Bye!